As are a rookie audiophile who wants to learn the art and science of subwoofer installation for your car or a professional. Installing a subwoofer is a good way to challenge your self-professed love for good sound. Here's how to install the subwoofer in your car. Installing a subwoofer in a car is a lot more complex than home installation. The materials and tools you'll need for this installation vary from electrical to mechanical. The electrical materials you need include a wire to connect your subwoofer and amp, a remote on LED that will work with the ignition or stereo to regulate the amp plus 12 volts, a fused battery connection plus 12 volts, a strong material that can adhere to the metal build of the car, a head unit, factory stereo or aftermarket that provides audio input to the amp. The mechanical materials you need include a heavy bass speaker driver, a subwoofer box for the driver, an amp with about 150 with RMS or more power handling capacity. Tools you need include a wiring kit for your amp that contains a remote wire, fuse holder, and accessories for connection, subwoofer speaker wire plus connections for signals for a factory stereo, brackets that you can use to mount down the sub box if you need to, speed drill cordless, electrical tape rated or a similar one of good quality, zip ties, wire ties, 6-inch or 8-inch small bag, coat hanger made from wire metal, self-tapping screws 3/8 length, useful if you already have a drill. You are more likely to find the plus 12 volts battery connection for your amp if you have an old model car. The wiring in modern cars is usually unsuitable for installing a subwoofer in a car since they tend to be less than plus 12 volts. You may use this installation guide for a factory stereo or for an aftermarket stereo. The difference will be in the number of hours it takes for you to successfully install the subwoofer. It'll take more hours to install your subwoofer in a factory stereo than it will take to install it in an aftermarket stereo. Be sure you have all the materials and tools you need before you begin the subwoofer installation process so that you don't get stuck along the way. Selecting an amplifier. You can get an effective amplifier for your head unit even if you are on a budget. At best it'll have all the necessary features that will enable it couple perfectly with a subwoofer to produce quality bass sound. A monoblock or single-channel amplifier is perfect for this job. However, if you have a bridged multi-channel amp, that also will be sufficient. What's in a good bass? A subwoofer that has good power handling capability up to 150 with RMS with 1 or 2 bridged amp channels. Crossover with low pass to filter high-frequency sounds. They help your subwoofer system to produce clean, quality sound. A bridged amplifier is one where 2 amp channels are synced to power 1 or more drivers at once. With this, the amp power can be reinforced as much as 4 times. Car-powered subwoofer. A subwoofer built for cars will normally have everything like the right driver, a built-in amplifier and a box. You might consider getting one if you do not have the time to build your own subwoofer. Installing a car-powered subwoofer is easier than installing a separate system of subwoofer and amplifier. They are very small and inexpensive, yet they still produce good bass. Installing subwoofer and amplifier. Installing an amplifier, you'll need to pay attention to some procedures that are important. First, you have to send your cable's positive wire into your car's battery area while hiding it beneath the interior trim and carpet. This will require lifting plastic trims that can easily go back to their position. An example of such trim is the rocker panel cover. You can ease the lifting process with a screwdriver that has a flat head. Also, lift the carpet to cover up your amp wires. Just lift them carefully at their edges until you have enough space to place your wires. The other part of this installation is the part of extending wires into the engine compartment and battery. Find a convenient spot of the car where you can create a hole using a screwdriver or some other tool. Then pass the wire through that hole all the way to the car engine. That hole can also be created by displacing a plug or may even pre-exist in the car. You can also create that hole on a grommet seal or rubber seal in the car. Use a car hanger to pass the wire through. Either by pushing until you have enough of the tip on the engine end, or by winding the wire around the straightened tip of the hanger. Then pull the wire out on that engine end. Once you're able to pass the wire out on that end, much of the remaining work is a walkover. The next place to run wire is to the boot. You may find a hole somewhere down the backrest of the rear seat on the side. Or you can decide to lift the entire rear seat to find a suitable hole to run your wires through. When you find the hole, run your wire through it until you have it in the back. At this point, you want to link your fuse holder and positive wire. Cut off 0.5 inches of the wire insulator at both ends and pass it into the fuse holder. Hold down the wire with ring crimp terminal and pliers. When your positive wires are firmly in place, secure your fuse holder to the battery side with a 12-inch wire, but do not install it. The idea is to have the wires so short there won't be any form of short-circuiting to avoid any form of fire accident. Why should you use ring terminals to crimp? They are a lot more budget-friendly and fit into the wiring kit of a good amp without much trouble. As much as possible, avoid terminals that you have to solder, as they end up wasting much of your installation time. When you have your positive wires installed to the fuse holder, without the fuse, then run it to the battery and secure with zip ties fastened to any brackets around. Next, link the ground wire of your amp to a metal part of your car and hold it up with ring terminals. Use your self-tapping screw and drill, cordless, to create a space for your ground wire. Except if your car came with a ground wire space from the manufacturer. Link your stereo and source of input to the remote on LED. Most aftermarket stereos will come with output wire for the remote lead, usually color blue. The purpose of the blue output wire is to regulate on/off for the surface amp by supplying +1 volts to a turned-on stereo. Without an aftermarket stereo, you have to connect the hidden wire to an ignition-controlled +1 volts wire. Alternatively, make use of an adapter that is designed to detect music and has the ability to reflect the signal once powered without manual handling. Take the time to locate the +1 volts in your car for a perfect connection. If your car stereo aftermarket has RCA jackets, then you have to connect the RCA wires or speaker wires. The jackets are usually denoted as SUBW, or something close to that, and may come as 4 rear jackets or 2, the left, white and right, red. On the other hand, if you are using a factory stereo, you may not find any RCA jackets. Your best bet will be connecting to signal sources with speaker wires. You should do this at the point when you link your stereo and remote wire. Also, connect to the speakers in your car boot. To connect to your speaker or stereo using the speaker wires, cut off 0.5 inches of wire insulator and connect to the naked part of the factory wire. Feel free to hold it in place with a crimp connector and a gauge wire. When you are done with linking the remote wire, signal wire, or power wire, it's time to send them to the amplifier. First, you have to assemble them at a point and secure them at a point with zip ties. Then trim off the excess zip tie. It's okay to space your ties as much as 12 inches if you do not have a lot of it. Mounting your amplifier. The major ways to mount your amplifier will be on the subwoofer cabinet or with a board for mounting amps. It's way easier to mount your amplifier on the subwoofer box. But attaching a board to the car is neater, and helps to reduce the rate at which your amplifier is affected by vibrations. For amplifiers mounted on a board, get a custom-cut board that will allow you to install the amp in any location convenient to you, and get a black fabric. Use car stereo installation straps to mount your amp. They'll also work for your subwoofer box and board. When you're done mounting your amp, then it's time to fix in the wires. Make sure power is disabled and that your power wire fuse is not connected. Now, fix the wires in their right ports: remote, power, ground wire. Look around to see that no wire is hanging out of its place and that there is absolutely no risk of short-circuiting. Then run your large speaker wire to your amp's terminals. Time to check your system out. Now that you have completed the connection, fix back your power fuse and ignite your car's engine plus stereo. If everything is right, then your amp will show it with the power light coming on and some background sound. What if your amp doesn't signal power or sound? There are a number of reasons your amp may not come on after the installation. It's either that the ground wire of the car is poor or the fuse holder is bad. Another reason is that the remote wire is not giving out as much as +12 volts or it has a low voltage. Installing your own subwoofer is a bit tricky but a fun challenge. It will also take hours to complete this project. You sure will have a jolly, good time. If you've enjoyed this video, click the subscribe button below. Hit the notification bell so you'll know once we post a new video. Also, drop a comment below so we can know your thoughts. Finally, don't forget to check the description below for more details. Visit our site zimsubwoofers.com for more awesome subwoofer tips like this.